Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Real Talks with Rechie. That was a terrible... I have to go... Hold on, I gotta do it one more time. What is
this?
This
is all for the outtakes.
One more time. Okay. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Real Talks with Rechie. So excited to be here. We're back again for Season 3, Episode 1 of Real Talks with Rechie. And for this first episode, naturally with Filipino Heritage Month, I have a very special guest for all of you. It's Senator Gigi Osler. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you, Minister.
I love the sound of that.
I love the sound of calling me Minister.
We're back, of course, since coming out of an election period, and so honored to be here as the Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
Hold on. Big round of applause for that.
Thank you.
You have made people, women, and the community across the country so proud.
Thank you. Truly an honor. And Secretary of State for Small Business and Tourism. All my three babies wrapped into
all in one.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Always a pleasure.
For those that don't know Senator Osler, I just want to share a little something about you.
Okay.
Senator Osler is the first Filipino-Canadian woman appointed to the Senate. Prior to politics, she was an internationally renowned surgeon and a dedicated health advocate on TikTok and many other platforms as well. And as the first female surgeon and racialized woman elected as president of the Canadian Medical Association, you have championed principles of things that I advocate for, which is equity, diversity, inclusion within medicine. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. She is also an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba in the Department of
Otolaryngology, head and neck surgery, more commonly known as ear, nose, and throat surgery.
There you go. Well, thank you again for being here. And that's literally a mouthful. Say that 10 times.
I won't, but it is a mouthful.
Yeah. Well, no, it's been I haven't seen you in a little while. So this is actually great for us to catch up again.
And, I was thinking back in getting ready for coming on the podcast about the very first time we met, and it was during COVID, and so all the meetings were virtual, and I think we were on a panel.
Yeah.
And I just remember meeting the first Filipina elected to the House of Commons and being so in awe of you. And now to think a few years later, we get to work together here in Parliament. I get tingles every time I think about it.
Yeah, both of us have been on an incredible journey. And I want to ask you about that journey and really we know your background in medicine, but what I'm curious about is that's the beauty about being in politics. You bring a little bit about yourself to the role, but I really want to understand how, your background in the medical field has shaped your role as a senator.
Well, coming from medicine, I've always believed medicine is a profession. It's certainly a job. People work hard, but it's a profession because you are serving and helping our fellow human beings. And so now when I look at where we work, you in your chamber, me in my chamber, I continue to look at my job now as service to the country, service to Canadians, to communities. But I bring that dedication and that service and thinking about health because my background is in health. In the Senate, I have several colleagues who come from healthcare backgrounds. So it's really nice to be able to bring those health discussions and that health lens to the committee work that we do and to the legislation that we study.
And you've been in the role now for several years.
2.5.
Can you share maybe a proud moment of something that, bringing your perspective to the table, especially as a woman, someone who's specialized in your field of work, something that you're proud of what you've changed or been able to change just by simply having that voice at the table?
Well, having that voice at the table, especially with a healthcare lens, has been really helpful with some of the legislation that has come through both of our chambers of the last few years. The Pharmacare bill is a big one that comes to mind. And for Canadians to have access to contraception, to be able to improve health in that way was very meaningful for me as a senator with a healthcare background. The other thing that's been really, really interesting to be a part of is the way we've been able to celebrate in Philippine Independence Day and Filipino Heritage Month here in June on Parliament Hill. And we've been involved in some of the receptions and the flag raising on Parliament Hill. And I know that's such an incredibly proud moment for you and for the community.
Yeah, both of us have had the experience of raising the flag on Parliament Hill. I also remember my first time. And it's been an incredible experience just to like witness the Philippine flag being raised on Parliament Hill, and then having your family, friends, and the community surrounding us. Truly a remarkable moment. And this year, June 12th, just like we do every year,
Parliament Hill,
exactly,
Thursday, June 12th, Philippine flag raising. So be there.
I'm really excited for that. So one of the things I get asked all the time, it's like, what exactly do you do as a member of Parliament? In this case, in terms of a senator role, I was wondering if you could walk me and all of us through like what a day in the life is like as a senator.
So my day, I think, is a little bit different compared to an MP, and definitely different compared to a minister. We sit in our chamber, and there's an order paper, much like you have an order paper. And an order paper is just basically an agenda for the day. And it lists the government business, the bills, what senators are going to say. We have a section at the beginning of every sitting where you have senator statements. So different senators can get up and you spend 3 minutes talking about a topic. And we study legislation. So in Canada, legislation has to pass in both houses. House of Commons and the Senate has to be the same piece of legislation, same wording. We vote on legislation as well, and we have committees, much as the House of Commons has committees. And one thing I'm really proud about is the committee work. And when you see the senators sitting around the table, and senators who are accomplished from all fields, all sectors, the depth and knowledge in which they ask questions and study issues really should be something that Canadians are proud of.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned committees. I served on the Agri and Agri-Foods Committee, and also the Veterans Affairs. And for yourself in the Senate, which committees have you been a part of?
So I am, well, we haven't formulated our committees just yet because Parliament's just back. That's all getting going. But in the past, I've been on the Human Rights Committee and the Social Affairs, Science and Technology Committee, because that's where health falls. Health in the Senate falls under that committee.
And I think like to put a wrap between the House of Commons and the Senate, I think the key thing is you've just explained the 411 on how a bill gets passed in this country, how laws are made. It cannot be passed without authorization and full votership between the House of Commons and the Senate. And
certainly the House is elected, the Senate is appointed, and we are very cognizant of our role as an appointed chamber. Sir John A. Macdonald called us the chamber of sober second thought. And so the senators are there to improve upon legislation, to ask hard questions, but certainly always respect the will of the elected chamber.
And the last thing I'll say is what I love about the fact that we have two houses, it's that diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And back to your role as someone in the health field and me being a small business entrepreneur, corporate banker, it's bringing all those perspectives when you're analyzing a bill that really makes laws in this place richer by adding the value and having the dialogue and conversation. And that's the beauty about politics.
And what's really interesting, what's a difference between our two chambers is that in the Senate, we have gender parity. So we have, at one point, we had I think about 53% of the senators were women. There's incredible diversity in the Senate with representation from Indigenous senators, senators of different ethnic and racial groups, different language groups. So it really is almost this chamber of wise elders from across the country.
And I would be remiss if I don't give a shout out to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because his decision to make cabinet also gender parity was a huge decision. And Prime Minister Mark Carney has also decided to do the same thing with gender parity. So shout out to our prime ministers who are leading the way, like in the world. You don't see this happening around the world. So we're really privileged in Canada to be able to have that type of leadership.
And I'm going to say it again. I think I said it before. Congratulations on being wage minister. It is such an important portfolio. And I personally am just so excited to see the work that you're going to do.
The wage advocates, as soon as the announcement went out, were elated, and I look forward to the work and working with all of them to really move the needle on this file. Now, and as far as being a woman leader, I don't know about you, but women often have to be asked multiple times, to run for politics, to put your name on the hat, to even become a leader. I'll share my personal story, but I'd love to hear how you got started. I was about to open 2 brick and mortar stores. A lot of people don't know this. I had poured all my personal investments into starting, because that was the ultimate dream. Open my bakery, my own brick and mortar store, and I had 2 being built at the same time and constructed. And then I got a call and an opportunity to talk about something that would come up, which is a possible seat opening up in Mississauga, Streetsville, and if I would consider it.
So hold on. Had you ever thought of going into politics before that?
Never. I would laugh. I'm like, are you kidding? Why? So I originally said no.
Yeah.
I declined the offer, but I'm so grateful to the person who said, Rechie, I really need you to reconsider that no, and talk about this decision with your family, your husband, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And do you know why you said no?
I did, because I was busy. I was busy, I was how it seemed impossible, because I was physically in the middle of the construction, and I couldn't see a world where, how could I give up I had worked so hard to get to that point. But I think the long and the short of it is, thank goodness I did. Told my husband, and I was expecting him to resist.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He actually said, Rechie, you deserve it. I'm here to support you. I believe in you, and you should do it. And I was like, darn it, there goes every other. I was hoping for another excuse. But here we are.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about taking a chance on yourself and the opportunity. And so, did you have to get asked a few times, or did you get nudges along the way?
So let me tell you a story. So I'm a little bit older than you, and probably around 2010, 2012, my kids were a little bit older. I thought, I want to do more. I want to give back. I want to serve more. And I looked around for local opportunities to do leadership roles, to volunteer, to help with my organization, with my department. And then that grew, and my passion to serve grew as well. About 2016, I was asked to run for president of the Canadian Medical Association. It's an election, nowhere near anything you would have gone through. But for somebody who generally is very shy, the thought of running in an election terrified me. Now, only doctors in Manitoba would have voted, but still that meant I had to go out, not door knock like you used to, but I would have to go out and meet different people I didn't know, and try to convince them to vote for me. Wow. People who'd never met me before. Kudos to Minister Valdez and any elected politician who'd done that. That is, it takes an incredible amount of resolve and courage. When I was asked to run, my initial reaction was, me? Why me? And I think that's a little bit of that reaction that you had. And as I thought about it, the opportunity to serve and the opportunity to have a platform to advocate for positive change, to try to make lives and health better for people across Canada by serving this role, is what grew larger than the terror. Because the terror was still there, but
it's always there.
Yeah, the excitement and the opportunity was a little bit bigger. And so I said yes. And so as a result of that, and a few other opportunities since, I have trained myself when opportunity knocks, when once in a lifetime opportunities knock, to say, why not me? Why not me? Instead of, why me? Why would anybody vote for me?
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to intentional and conscious training, rewiring of my own brain to not go to the negative, to not go to the doubt, and to think about the positives and think about what you can bring to the table.
I'm glad you said a few things. I'm going to highlight a few things. One, the level of strength it takes to believe in oneself and to have courage. That takes a lot. And as you were speaking, I reflect back to like what the heck made me walk away from to the investment, the time I put in, the ultimate dream, to pivot to a completely different dream, one that I had, oh, by the way, no experience in.
And running a business?
And compared to running a business, which I know very well.
Politics.
Yeah, pivoting to politics. I think I was at a point in my life, and now that I'm talking out loud about it, I was at a point in my life similar to yours where you were open to possibilities. And even though the possibility or the realm of possibility was very much unknown and unfamiliar, I think the bigger picture, which is what you're alluding to, for me, the bigger picture was community and representation. I knew and I was aware that we didn't have any representation federally.
Because prior to you, in the Senate, we had Senator Enverga, and in the House, we had Dr. Ray Pactacan.
Exactly.
You would have been the first, and you are still the first and only Filipina ever elected to the House.
And Dr. Ray was our representation 17 years ago.
Yeah.
So until I was elected, we've had this 17-year gap. And we really needed a voice in the House with 1 million Filipinos strong across this country. One in every, 40 Canadians is of Filipino descent. So much like what you were saying, it's like advocating for something bigger. And like that was a daunting leap of faith. But just like yourself, I'm glad that we both did it. So thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for running several times, because I know how that has inspired people across the country.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. So around Filipino Heritage Month, around what it means to be Filipina, we both have very different paths to get to where we are now. My parents were from the Philippines, immigrated to Kitwe, Zambia, Africa, where I was born. I immigrated here in 1989. Can you share, a little bit about like your journey at a high level to get here and what makes you proud to be a Filipina woman?
So, truth of the matter is, I'm only half Filipina, so I am mixed. My father was from India. My mom is from the Philippines. And I'm a little bit older than you. So growing up in Winnipeg in the 1970s, Canada and Winnipeg was not as diverse as it is right now. So we grew up probably more in the Filipino community because of my mom. I have 2 younger brothers, and we were a busy family. And I know that's something we have in common, is how important our family is to us. And so growing up, we probably spent a little time in the East Indian community in Winnipeg, not much time with the Filipino community, especially my aunties and uncles. But we kind of grew up in the Canadian community. So I've always felt a little bit like an outsider. Am I really, I don't speak the language.
Neither do I.
Truthfully, the only thing my mom used to say to us, and I actually don't know if it was in Tagalog or Ilocano, she would say something to us in her language when we were bad. And I repeated that phrase once to somebody, and they went, oh, because it's not good words. So I don't speak the language. The common language at home was English. So I've always had a bit of a feeling of being an imposter until I experienced the very warm embrace from Filipino communities across the country who have said, you are Filipino.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if you don't speak the language. You are a Filipino. You are one of us. And it is that warm hug from the community because they are so proud of you. They are so proud of me. They are so proud of us. That is what, that privilege and that love is just what keeps me going.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because, you know, as you grow up, you're trying to navigate. Because I was born in Zambia and then I came to Canada, but I was Filipino, I was like ultra confused with I didn't know what to do with any of it. So I actually didn't really discover who I was as a Filipina until I became an entrepreneur. Because after my first business, built the first business from the ground up. It was the second business where I was selling Filipino fusion desserts, where I had the opportunity of selling ube, makapuno, pandan at like all the summer festivals. And at the summer festivals, when I was selling the desserts, it actually turned into a conversation. They're like, what is this ube? I'm like, you mean ube? And I was talking about the flavors I grew up. I was talking about my experiences. And then all of a sudden I was sharing my stories. And then before I knew it, ironically through my desserts that I was selling, I started to get to know myself as a Filipino woman. And it was the small business entrepreneurs. You got hugged. Well, I was also hugged, so to speak, by the Filipino entrepreneurs that surrounded me and who I chose to kind of bring into the fold to help with businesses or to share ideas and to collaborate. It was all of them that really got me to understand who I truly was. And so imagine all my life really not knowing, hit this point as an entrepreneur where I actually just rediscovered myself, so to speak. And that's ultimately what gave me the confidence and showed me who I really was. And I realized that I had to lean, it was a choice. I could and I had to lean into that more.
And what's really interesting, and I think, you know, I'm hearing a little bit, it doesn't sound like either of us grew up really knowing I'm Filipina, but we are, and we've come into that. And I wonder too if that is an important message for a younger generation who are growing up in Canada, who maybe they were born here, or maybe they came here at a young age with their family, or maybe they came here when they were older, in terms of embracing who you are can come at any age.
Exactly.
And if you're not knowing exactly who you are right now, that's okay. Keep exploring, keep finding yourself, keep finding the things that you love, and it will come to you in time.
And you and I are always at events and festivals. June Heritage Month, thanks to MP Salma Zahid, we get to celebrate for the entire month of June. And to that end, I think I'm so grateful that the community, being as large as it is across the country, we have festivals now where we can celebrate who we are. I didn't have this growing up. And I think that is how we keep our heritage, our culture, our love for our food and family alive. It's really through the celebration, you know, for months like these, like Filipino Heritage Month. Again, 1 million Filipinos strong across this country. I'm curious, how do you process the weight of that privilege? Because I have my own thoughts, but I wanted to know how that's helped you or how that's challenged you to kind of bring that voice to the table as well.
I'm going to speak to the privilege first, because it is an immense privilege to be where I am, and I know for you to be where you are. And so I'm always cognizant of that privilege. I'm so proud of it. When it comes to the weight, because you were the first to get here to Parliament, I think the weight would weigh heavily on you as the first. I think for me, I'm here to help carry that weight. So we carry it together. And I find the community helps carry it as well.
Agreed.
And so it makes it lighter when it's you and I and the communities across the country.
Yeah, I admit when you got elected, it did relieve a pressure valve. And I was like, yes.
When I was sworn in as a senator, I wanted to make sure, and I had asked you, even though we'd only met a couple of times, it meant a lot for me to have you in the Senate chamber when I was sworn in, because we are the two Filipino Canadian representatives in Parliament right now.
Right, and I'm like so incredibly proud of that. Okay, so being a woman in politics, not easy, eh?
No. And again, this is one of the interesting things between the houses. I truly believe being a woman in elected politics is different than being in where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
The scrutiny that elected politicians, especially my female colleagues, go through is pretty intense.
It is.
It's pretty intense. And I will give another shout out to the colleagues that I work at in the Senate, because we have more than 50% women. It is a chamber that is incredibly supportive in its diversity. And so I really have talked to many of my elected female colleagues, and I think we are working together across all parties, across all houses, to make it better for women in politics.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm most proud of are the policies we've put in place. We have a gender parity cabinet. We have actually now this time around, we have the largest caucus with women ever
really?
in the history of our caucus, which I'm very, very proud of. And having women at the table, decision-making table, part of the debate, part of the conversation, has really helped shape policies like Canada Child Benefit, $10 a day childcare. I remember how expensive childcare was for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, where was this policy when I was,
Yeah.
when I was pregnant twice? But a lot of our policies are really, informed in terms of ensuring that our voices are there.
Yeah.
And I think I feel like
that makes
I'm
a
definitely
huge
going to
difference to have that voice at the table.
And I'm going to really need your help. And of course, with many members of the Senate, with regards to this particular portfolio with women and gender parity, and how we can continue to work together to shape future policies.
And I think that's more important now than ever.
I agree. So I'm going to have to lean on you. I'm just saying.
I'm here.
Now, back in April, I actually remember the precise moment I found out. One of the members of my team called me. I was washing dishes. He called me, and he actually verbally, almost real time, gave me a recount of his experience at the Lapu Lapu Festival.
Oh, my.
I couldn't believe I was taking this call. I couldn't believe that someone from my team was all the way out in Vancouver and experiencing this real time. The shock, the devastation, the horror, the trauma, like all of it, it was really tough.
Yeah.
And our hearts go out to, the victims, the families, and the entire community out there in Vancouver. And it wasn't just the Filipino community impacted.
Yeah.
There were victims from many different diasporas. And so that was my recollection of that day. And a couple days following the campaign, the first thing I did was head out there just to be with the community, because it was completely devastating. So I just wanted to ask your reflection. You were in Winnipeg. Where were you? How did you take in that event? And if you wanted to share any thoughts.
I remember that morning because I was actually here in Ottawa and woke up and had received so many messages about what had happened the night before, and spent that morning trying to process what had happened, looking online, trying to get news from as many different sources as I could to try to piece together what happened and why. And it sunk in more and more as the days went on, and I think, like many people were thinking, could have been me at any street festival, just as they were cleaning up. And it shook the Philcan community across the country to its core. And even if, and many people knew somebody who was there or who had been injured or who was still in hospital, even if you didn't know anybody who was there or physically connected, it still shook you. One thing that I saw come out of it was other communities reaching out to comfort us, to offer their support. And I saw the community, as always resilient, come together unfortunately, in a way we had not seen before. You know, typically, the community comes together in celebration and in joy and in love, and this was in sorrow and in shock and in grief. But still, we came together. We are a strong community. We are connected. We are rebuilding. We are healing, and I think we will continue to do so. But it still is. Like for you, hard to talk about.
Yeah. And a few reflections. One is that my team member that was there, he's a small business owner. He said that it's his customer who happened to come in right before closing, who happened to distract him with the conversation of his hats. It actually kept him in his booth, so that because he would have actually logically went out of the booth, which would then logically place him right in the path of the vehicle at that precise moment. And a lot of people are reflecting about that day, and they're taking it in. And I think it is the worst historic, and I think in the history of Canada, it's probably the worst of its kind that's ever happened. But you spoke about the unification of the communities, and I'm just really grateful, like the number of different communities, not just in Canada, around the world, different community groups from many different backgrounds and cultures, standing in solidarity with us as a community. That was a very proud moment to feel like, you know, that helped so much, not feeling alone, not feeling as much the pain. And I think right now with the community still healing, and they're going to continue to be in the process of healing, we'll continue to be there to support them and to hear them out.
100%.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, Senator, as we close, I wanted to ask if there's a message. You know, the two of us are in, we talked about our privilege about being in these spaces, but a message to like young Filipinas, the ones who are maybe unsure of what they want to do in their future. Maybe they're considering politics or even considering putting themselves forward in a leadership position within their own career. What advice or what would you like to share to that Filipina?
I'm thinking back on the conversation that we had, those initial little taps on the shoulders, you know, when you were asked to run for politics, and that initial reaction that you said no. And for me, when I was asked to run for something, I said, why me? And my message is, instead of saying, why me, ask yourself, why not me? Why not you? And when you have those doubts, it's good to go to somebody you know and love and trust and reflect back, just like you did with your husband. And he said, for sure, do it. Because often those people can reflect back to you your strengths, whereas we may only see our faults and our weaknesses. They'll reflect back your strengths, and they can help reframe how you view yourself. So that's the first message. Why not you? Second message is lift while you climb.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure that the doors that open for us stay open for all of those who come after us.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because through the Filipino internship program, we've seen, or our summer leadership program that we have here in the Hill, we've seen amazing Filipino Canadians, young people step up and put themselves out there to get the experience that they need to be able to participate, help with an MP or a senator office. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the segue or opportunity, or even to volunteer, to help learn a little bit more about politics, this world that we're in. And I think it's vitally important for young people to understand, you know, how they can get there. Yeah. But I just want to say thank you so much again for joining this episode of Real Talks with Rechie.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to talk.
Amazing. I'm giving you a hug.
Okay. Oh, sweetheart.